It's great meeting you. I feel like I already know you.
I love it. I love it. I hope it's all good stuff, but that's awesome.
It is all good stuff. So how you been?
Things have been good. Things have been good. We're busy right now, got a lot of good things happening, but this whole year has been quite, as everybody says, the pivot. But in the world of athletics, just trying to keep, when the main priority is just keeping everyone able to play, it's a lot different than years past. We've always, we're so focused on the game was a guaranteed. It was going to happen. It was just a matter of the preparation and taking everything into account, getting into it. Now it's just crossing the fingers that everyone could just stay safe and the out of the 100 and some people that work with, actually the 150 people that work with a football team, keeping everybody, not letting one of them slip through the cracks. And it's been quite a challenge, but nonetheless, I'll tell you, we have learned a heck of a lot over this year, and we're learning a lot of stuff about ourselves, and it's been quite a learning experience.
Yeah, that's good though. It'll be interesting going into hopefully next year when we're back to normal, what you've taking all those things that you've learned this year.
Yeah. Well, and and it's changed. I mean, you have to feel this as well. I mean, it's shown, Zoom, for instance, we always had speakers come in, and I remember the one speaker we really wanted to have, but he couldn't come in here and talk to us. So he's like, yeah, I could do a Zoom session with you. And I was like, no, who wants to talk through a computer? Like we want to feel you in front. And get thrown into this, and you find out how productive this is and how we could change. So yeah, we've learned a lot, and I think the landscape of when we exit this and whatever this the new normal that we're going into, because it's not going to go back to that old normal, but whatever we do transition into, I think it's going to be pretty special. I think it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be efficient, and it's going to lend to a much more productive way of doing things.
Yeah, that's good. So how long have you been with IU?
15 years now.
Okay.
Yeah. So quite some time.
Okay. So what's your title there now?
So my title now is Senior Assistant Athletic Director for Athletic Performance.
Okay.
So it's quite a wordy title.
So what's that mean?
So what that means is that I have a staff of 14 and 14 strength and conditioning coaches. And then our strength and conditioning coaches oversee all of the strength and conditioning aspects to perform to all of 740 some athletes right now. So 740 some athletes, 24 sports, all of them doing strength and conditioning. I oversee all the strength coaches that would, kind of implement their programs.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? What are you using for a mic? Looks like I'm getting some static. Is it just there? I think it's maybe this.
You know what? Let me see if I can do this. What if I just go?
That sounds better.
It does? Okay.
Yeah, you okay with that? But can you hear me?
Oh, it's even better. Yeah. No problem at all. That's perfect.
Yeah, I think it was picking up basically just the vibration of stuff. So, I don't want to I can edit a lot of it out, but it's just easier to not have to worry about that ahead of time.
Absolutely. No problem at all. It's a lot easier. I can move around a lot easier without. It's good. It's good. Yeah, I don't know why I've had that. That's been doing that. Even this morning it was doing it a little bit too. So I have to get that checked.
Okay. So how does it work then? So you said over 700 athletes that you're kind of managing. How's it work? Are you at the gym all day long? What's it typically like?
So the old days we would get in there. First group started at 6 o'clock. So we were in there by 5:30, and you have athletes that are coming in all throughout the day, and everything is scheduled, everything is laid out. But that's what we did. We from about 5:30 in the morning till about 7 o'clock at night. That was when we had a staff of about 5 or 6. Now having 14, it's kind of relieved the load a lot. So what we end up doing is we end up piecing it off that each one of us would have between 2 and 4 teams, and then we take care of all their needs. So all their everything from strength to conditioning to speed to mobility. I mean, we're kind of the ones that are the hands-on with our athletes, looking to get the highest level of performance out of them.
Okay. So obviously you're working closely with the coaches, with their regular team coaches. But do you pretty much, they leave everything to you as far as the strength training and stuff?
Well, in a perfect world, yes, but we live in a world where coaches definitely have strong opinions, especially at this level.
Yeah.
They've come with a background of how they've done strength conditioning, and the reality is a lot of them grew up. A lot of our coaches are older. I mean, I guess I'm older at that point, but
Yeah.
what they did 20 years ago isn't the best practice right now. So we're always just trying to educate them. For the most part, we have a lot of really good coaches that allow us to really kind of do what we need to do, and then with us, what's on us is to make sure that we are practicing those the best practices, the most up to date strength and conditioning. The old days, it was just about getting someone strong and do it. Now we found how much mobility helps for the structural integrity of the joint. Instead of just jamming the weight on there, we're looking at range of motion and a lot of different things. So we've evolved a lot with that, and the coaches have allowed us to be part of their teams and evolve to make sure that we're putting the best practices forward.
Okay, that's good. So did you play sports growing up?
I did, yeah. Grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and yeah, played all kinds of sports. So everything from baseball to basketball to wrestling, but kind of my bread and butter was always football. I played
Okay.
football ever since I was 5 years old. Northeast Pennsylvania is the equivalent of Indiana.
Yeah.
Indiana's basketball. I mean, we just grew up with a ball in our hand and we played. So I played football ever since I was 5, and then pretty much all the way through.
Okay. So what got you into doing, getting into strength and conditioning?
So for me, the big deal was being around sports. So when football ended up ending, I felt this void. I just wanted to be still around athletics. I didn't want to give that up. But I was at a junior college at that point, and I had this professor, Ed Gertis. Still, I mean, the guy is literally. I contribute, him with so much of where I'm at right now, because he was a former West Virginia strength coach, professor at this junior college, and he told me all about this world. He's like, this profession, if you love the weight room, you love still coaching, you want to be around athletics, might be a valuable option. And so I got in when I transferred out to Penn State. When I got into Penn State, I ended up going in there and asking to volunteer
Yeah.
my time in the weight room. And I got to tell you, 1 hour of being in that weight room, I realized that this is unbelievable. And I could not wrap my head around the fact that people get paid to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that. I spent that time volunteering, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, I can remember the first year into my undergrad, and they turned to me and they offered to give me at least a couple hours paid. I thought, no shit, like this
Yeah.
is real. So yeah, so I ended up getting into it and then falling in love with it. And you know what? I don't feel like I've ever worked a day in my life, because
Yeah.
it's just an absolute joy to go and be around those athletes and to really help people get better.
Yeah, and I'm sure at that level too, these athletes want to get better. Some are looking to go to the next level, so I think they're probably hungry for hopefully what you're telling them.
Yeah, and then that's what it is. We have people in general want to be better. They want to continue to grow, and that's why I think if you're a personal trainer or however you are around people to help them with their physical improvement, it's so special. But when you're dealing with an athlete that has every one of our soccer players, I work primarily with men's soccer right now, and we've got a really, really good team. I mean, one of the most historically great teams there are. And
Yeah.
every one of those guys that come into the program all have that one goal. It's not even to be a pro, it's to be a first round draft pick. And, to have that kind of ambition and goals, and to be able to just be part of their journey with them and give any kind of insight that I can to make them better. It's just such a privilege. It's an honor to be able to do that.
How hard is it to pull some of them back though? Do they push themselves too much sometimes?
So it's the balance. It is the balance of that. A lot of it all depends what athletes you're working with. But I do have to say the men's soccer team, they have an engine and they have an ability that they just want to go, 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 and they want to go a lot faster than Their mind is telling them one thing. That nervous system is revved up, but structurally they've got some bad wheels on them. You gotta pull them back so you biomechanically could just set them up so that when they are ready to hit that full throttle, that they structurally stay together. So that is always the challenge, and
Yeah.
that's where this field has evolved so much. Before it was we took an athlete that came in, we saw that, and we tried to strengthen them up as best as we could. Now we analyze, and we analyze with not just our eye, but with different devices. We're looking at not only the cardiovascular part of it from the heart and everything else that's inside, but then we look at the biomechanical makeup of each kid, how they move, their mobility, structurally, how joint angles are looking. So it's definitely evolved in a way that is much safer, but much more productive for the athlete.
Okay. Then how about as far as physical therapy? Obviously, you have a team that's working with them as well in conjunction with you guys.
Yeah, the whole thing, the whole system is a big team oriented deal. So you got the strength coaches, but then you also got the dietitians, you got the athletic trainers, you got the sports medicine side of it, and then you also got physical therapists, chiropractors, massage therapists. We have an incredible team that just surrounds every one of those student athletes, and they're all working there in conjunction, working collaborative together to be able to put out the best program for those student athletes. We all have our expertise, we all have our area, but the real true expertise and the real true magic of what we do is the ability to work together and be able to look at all these different sectors of any individual and figure out how to give them the best program.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Amazing. And it really, like I when we bring in young recruits, an 18 or a 16-year-old comes in there, a 17-year-old, and that's what we try to tell them. You played soccer your entire life. You've done this, but now when you enter into this, you're going to have a team that you're with. The Indiana soccer team is one thing, and your coaches, but now the behind the scenes, that support staff, it's not just an athletic trainer anymore. You've got doctors, you've got even orthopedic surgeons are at practices making sure that our rehab is going the right way. There's a team of people that are there to keep you safe or to keep you moving forward, and it's pretty special. It's amazing. It's a recipe for success, and you just got to come in there and you work your butt off, follow the plan, you will have success.
That's awesome. So I saw you've done some adventure racing and some triathlon stuff before.
Mm-hmm. I did, yes. Yeah.
How long did you do that?
So it's a cool transition. So there I am, football player. I got up to like 220 some pounds, and I just loved the game. And then all of a sudden the game ends for me. It's just kind of over. But again, I wanted to be around sport. But the other side of it is I wanted that competition. I wanted to get out there and compete with something. So I dusted off the old mountain bike, and I went out there and I did my first little 10-mile mountain bike race. And I got to be honest with you, I thought it was the hardest thing in the world. I'm not even 3 miles into this, and I thought about picking my front tire up and throwing it off a rock and sand. I couldn't finish because my tire blew out. I thought, it was unreal how hard it was. But when I crossed the line, and I know you probably noticed as well, there was just this sense of accomplishment and this sense of it being so demanding, so hard, and having to do it for so long, even though it was only 10 miles at that point, that it kind of it ignited something in me. And before you knew it, the mountain biking turned into some, as you said, adventure races. And the adventure races start with these little balance bar, 6 to 8 hours, balance bar high-tech adventure races. I could still remember them. And going 6 to 8 hours, I've never done anything for 6 to 8 hours. And we just did this as a team and just loved every bit of it. But at that point, that kind of really opened up this whole other world, because that was me really entering in, from the power athlete, from a football player or a baseball player, into this world of endurance and just feeling what it did to your body. And before you know it, I'm competing in 24:48, and then we did a 72-hour adventure race in the New River Gorge in West Virginia. And what that did for me, from my psyche to just literally showing what is possible if you just keep putting a foot in front of each other. It was something that changed my life completely. And that's what endurance sports has
Yeah.
done for me.
Yeah. How old were you when you did that? Like
So
what
I
ages?
started, so I was, I guess I would have been about 24 at that point, 24, maybe even 25, when I started doing those heavily. And yeah, and then later on that progressed even into half Ironmans and in the world of triathlons, which
Yeah.
is another just uh, a bear of a sport to try and contend with.
Yeah. It's training. That's what it comes down to. It's time
Yep.
to do that. So, when did you, I guess when was your last triathlon? You did an Ironman?
Yes. So the last it would have been a half Ironman, and it would have been Benton Harbor, and that would have been in 2011. So that
Okay.
would have been the last one. And the last adventure race, the last one, well, before my life kind of changed
Yeah.
a little bit, was it was actually in May or in April of 2012. So we had done a 24-hour adventure race. I did it with my wife and two close friends, team of four. We ended up winning that adventure race. And I was set up. I mean, we
Yeah.
had a team there, and then Ironman and everything else was going really well.
Yeah. So then May 17th, 2012 happens. How was that day? What happened?
So that day, it was a day that, I went out. I went out for what I call a training ride. I was competing that weekend. This was on a Thursday, and I was competing in a mountain bike race, a series that was happening in just north of or in northern Indiana. And so I went out for just that fine tuner primer, just to make sure everything is together, bike is working, and you're good. And the goal was to do these 4 laps around this little mountain bike course. And so I did the first lap and warmed up. Second lap built off of that. Third lap, I'm rolling, just pedaling and feeling better than I ever have. And by the fourth lap, I mean, I'm soaring. The
Yeah.
confidence has grown. The bike is dialed in. I'm feeling just incredible. And then about a quarter mile before I'd end the ride, I would go around this sharp corner and I would smash a rock. And before you knew it, I was somersaulting through the air. I mean, I could see the ground coming up faster and faster, but there was just nothing I could do. And then all of a sudden, impact. I
Yeah.
smashed the ground with the front part of my head, and it literally just jarred my head back, sent shockwaves through my body, and I felt my body instantly kind of turn to flames and just catch on
Yeah.
fire. And yeah, I somersaulted around and then landed flat on the ground and laid there motionless.
So how long were you there before someone found you?
So I ended up being there for over 3.5 hours.
Wow.
I mean, so 3.5 hours of just going through kind of the highs and lows, and you can't even think of
Yeah.
the highs in there, but there was some. But the reality of just trying to figure out how to get out of the woods and figuring out what I could do, trying to get off the ground, not being able to move, then trying to grab my phone, realizing at that point that my hands weren't working. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just these series of different emotions that we're going through. But luckily, at 3.5 hours, two riders came up behind me and they called for help. And well, that's when the real journey started and began.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was the injury?
So the injury was a C6, C7 vertebrae. So easiest way to say it, broke my
Yeah.
neck. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So incomplete or
incomplete. Yes.
okay. So what motion, I guess initially, did you have much motion at all in the beginning?
No. So the initial thing was I couldn't move my hands. When I would if I could lift my arm up, I didn't have triceps to be able to hold my hand above my head.
Yeah.
And obviously there was no motion from chest down, no abs, no core, and no leg movement. So that was the initial, immediately right after when I was in the hospital.
Okay. And then how many surgeries did you have?
Just one. And then,
Okay.
that was another. So again, this was just a huge emotional deal. And I remember going
Yeah.
to that shoulder surgery. There's a couple things. There's a lot of stuff I remember throughout this journey, but the one thing that I really remember going into that surgery, the surgeon saying, "Hey, if we could go in and just make one cut, have one surgery, go in through the front, that's best case scenario." He said, "Chances are we might have to go in the front, the back, and then there's going to be multiple surgeries." And I remember coming out of surgery, and that was my first thing. Is all I wanted to know was one cut or two. And
Yeah.
I remember when he told me, nope, just one cut. I thought, all right, this is good. I mean, this is the best
Yeah.
scenarios on here. We just got to keep, praying for the best and
Yeah.
working, keep working on here, and we'll see what happens.
So how long are you in rehab?
So rehab, I stayed in rehab for 1 year.
Okay.
I was an inpatient in Fraser Rehab down in Louisville, and I was there for roughly 3.5 months. So living in the hospital for 3.5 months, and then moved to an outpatient scenario where I lived at a little house with two incredible people that opened up their doors to me and left me stay with them. But I can just commute it back and forth in Louisville there, but stayed in rehab itself for 1 year.
Okay. Yeah, your mobility looks good. So how's your trunk control right now?
Trunk is it's good. It's not great. So
Yeah.
that I have a low back on this
Yeah.
wheelchair.
Okay.
It was just pretty good. So I'm pretty stable. But if it was to do a sit up or to do a back extension or to do any of that stuff, I can't quite do that. But I do have some control. I've got good balance with that. My
Yeah.
arms and upper body it's definitely come back a lot. I mean, my hands aren't as strong as they were, but they definitely get the job done. I mean, I'm able to grip stuff. I'm able to work with them. Some of the real fine motor skills, sometimes it still messes with me, but for the
Okay.
most part, I'm pretty fortunate. I'm pretty fortunate
Yeah.
from where I was to where I've come or where I'm at.
Yeah, I happened to see something. I don't remember where it was. Did your doctor tell you something about not being able to do a push-up?
Yes.
So what was that story?
Yeah. So that was immediately after, we're going through the emotions of everything going on, going in, when you think of paralysis, everybody just associates paralysis with the fact that you can't, you're not going to walk. You're not going to walk. You're not going to walk. But you quickly realize that walking is kind of the least of your worries at that point. And so we start probing for more questions. We start, going through, and we're going through this rehab process. And we brought it up about, lifting. Can I lift? Can I, I saw the little bike ergometer. Like, I'm like, can I do that? And he's like, Tom, your arms don't work. You're not going to be able to do that stuff. And I remember my wife just sitting there in my little corner of my ear, which she did so often. She's like, you just show him you can. And I remember I'm on one of the big rehab beds, and I'm laying there, and I put my hands down and tried to push, and you realize how heavy my body felt at that point. I
Yeah.
used to do a lot of push-ups, but I start pushing, and I pushed with all my might. I mean, everything that you would swear it was like a 400-pound bench press,
Yeah.
but I was able to push myself up into a full upright position. And it was at that point that the doctor was just, right on the
Yeah.
corner of the bed. And my wife, looked at him and just shrugged her head and walked away. But it was such a cool thing, because that was where our mindset was between the two of us. My wife, she's as tough as they come. She should have been a strength coach. I'm telling you, she is tough, and she's always pushing me. She's always pushing herself. And when people told us we couldn't do something, I knew they weren't saying it malicious. They were just trying to,
Yeah.
paint a reality into our head. And I get it. But it also gave me that little bit of an edge just to kind of show, hey, no, I'm gonna give it my best effort. The reality is this: there's a lot of things that I still can't do, but I
Yeah.
work really, really hard to try and obtain and prove them wrong to a certain degree. But just sometimes reality is you do come up short, but I've still enjoyed this journey the whole time.
Yeah, that's great. So how do you think adventure racing and your time doing endurance sports actually helped you post recovery?
Yeah, I think number one thing is it taught me how to suffer.
Yeah.
I think endurance sports, you literally learn to suffer. It's a sustained suffering. It's highs and lows. It's being able to think you can't put a foot in front of them, and you figure out, I'm just going to walk through this aid station and then I'll jog a little bit, or you figure out how to keep moving, but somehow you keep moving forward. And for me, I really do want to say that endurance sports, being able to have so much time on a bike and have a time on, in a pool, and just learning how to push myself when I wanted to quit. Having that
Yeah.
ability to say, I don't want to do this anymore, and and still just continuing to keep moving forward. I really do think it's a game changer. It was a game changer for me. It allowed me to sit in those lulls, which I've had a lot of lulls after this accident,
Yeah.
but knowing that you just gotta suffer through this, because with every darkness, there's a light as long as you just keep pushing through that. And I think that was the biggest value that I've taken from my life before and where I'm at now.
Yeah. And then also, it looks like you have awesome support at IU.
Incredible.
Yeah. What has that family meant to you?
The family's incredible. Everybody always asks me what's IU means, and it's the people of IU. I mean, it's these people that reached out directly after the accident. I mean, my coworkers, a guy, Chris Virtue, I worked with now for probably 12 years. On the 4th of July, I'm still in the hospital. He and his wife ended up driving down to Louisville and created their own little picnic in my bedroom, overlooking the lake and watching fireworks. I mean, other coworkers, Lainey Deppie, end up, she was racing bikes a lot at that point. She gave me all of her winnings just to help out with any kind of rehab. And then Fred Glass, the guy, they all just made me not only, you know, feel empowered because of this team that surrounded me, but they just gave me that support, that energy, that motivation. They gave me the motivation. With all that help, I just knew that I wanted to make them proud. I wanted to continue to keep moving forward. And it's something that I just can't say enough. So the people that make up IU are a really, really incredible group of people.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then, as far as now, like being a strength coach, how has that helped? I'm sure being in the gym with those guys is probably awesome. It's probably, again, you're focused on taking care of them, so I'm sure there's no time to worry about anything else.
Right. Yeah, you're not stuck going. And I have multiple levels with being a strength coach, because in the world of strength and conditioning, we have some really crazy minds as far as like what is possible. Like it's like, well, can that happen? Most people would say no, but in the world of strength and conditioning, there are no no's, and there's no I can't. It is going to happen. And so that mentality, I came back probably 6 months after the accident. I just came back to visit with all my coworkers, and the very first thing they did was they got me out of my chair, and then they took my chair and put it at the other end of the weight room. Now, Pete, our weight room is 75 yards long, and they put my chair at the other end, and I crawled all the way down, and I got so mad in the middle because it was so challenging.
Yeah.
But just, they stood there cheering me on, and I was able to get it done. And again, it built my confidence up, but it also built me physically up to be able to do that. And the funny thing is, 2 weeks later, I come back, they do the exact same thing. This time they throw a 20-pound chain behind me. I had to drag down. So it's that mentality that I think really did help me out as far as moving forward. But then you also, like you mentioned, in the weight room, the energy from an 18 to 20-some-year-old, it's addicting. Like you love it, you feed off it, and you don't have any time to sit there and dwell on woe is me. You just want to be in that. You want to be helping those guys out. And then that's just, I said, I have a perfect situation from the team that surrounds me, to the support, to the fact that my job before and after I was able to kind of transition back to, and my job itself was as good a rehab as I ever could have had, because of the mental side of it, the physical side of it, everything that went on has really maximized what my recovery is.
Yeah, I think it's huge. And then you just sitting in a cubicle by yourself doing whatever type of job, you're right, that energy. So as far as your training plan and things that you do right now, strength, how are you doing that?
Yeah, so I designed my own training plan, put everything together. But like any good plan, you pull from the experts, and we have incredibly smart people that are around IU, and from physical therapists to chiropractors. I have my own little team that kind of surrounds me. Shoulders are a major deal for me. A lot of wear and tear on these guys, and I want to make sure that they're. I'm 80 some years old. still being able to do a lot of this stuff. So I lean on when I'm writing up my own workouts, I lean on a lot of experts to kind of give me what I should be doing. And it's helped out a lot because there's a lot of things that I don't know that have really helped me out with different mobility issues. There's a lot of things that I didn't even realize were happening until, that outside eye could see what's happening. And it gives me great feedback to be able to correct my posture, my breathing, and stuff like that. It's all about the team when it comes to designing a program. And I use it the same way as I do for our athletes.
Okay. So how often are you strength training a week?
So right now I'm in a phase where I lift 3 times a week.
Okay.
But I'm riding roughly 5 to 6 times a week as well. So this is all low riding, but heavy lifting right now.
Okay. So you hand cycle? What are you
Hand
doing?
cycle. Yes.
Okay. So how much you're riding 5 days a week, you said. How long are you typically riding?
So right now it's about 45 minutes to an hour on the rollers.
Okay.
Nice and easy, listening to podcasts, watching some movies. But what ends up happening, I'm literally following the same kind of protocols as I did when I was a cyclist upright and using my leg. Same thing from, a power meter, using different zones to everything. It's just all relative on the scale of what I'm able to put out. So, before, having an FTP of 300 and some, now you have an FTP of 140 watts. Like it's just all different, but it's all scaled by the percentages of whatever workout is in there.
Okay. So are you monitoring your heart rate?
Mm-hmm. I do. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which that is another interesting thing because of the injury. To get your heart rate in the early stages, I couldn't get my heart rate above 110 beats, where before this accident, for me to ride at 170 or 175, it wasn't near maximal. But after the accident, physiologically, your everything is so impaired, and you have a lot less muscles that are moving. There's many different factors that are going on. But just learning what that new scale is, as far as, well, where should my heart rate be? How am I going to go? The idea of sweating. I mean, the first 3 years, I didn't sweat at all. And that is all part of this injury. But 3 years into this, I went out for that summer and I still remember it. I mean, like I said, walking would be really, really awesome. But for me, there's so many little things, like to be able to pinch my fingers, or to be able 3 years into this and all of a sudden start sweating. I mean, I don't know what walking would feel like, but I know the joy that I get out of being able to pinch the fingers, sweat, or be able to do different things by myself is really, really incredible, because every little thing helps out tenfold into my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. How is breathing then? Did you have a lot of issues with respiratory stuff in the beginning?
I did, yeah. So that was, when I laid in the woods, I didn't realize, I didn't even realize what was happening. Not that anybody really would, but when I was laying there, I could hear people in the out in the fields, and some people were, like, you could hear noise, so they weren't that far away. But when I went to yell help, it just came out as this little muffle, like help, but I couldn't project anything. And then I remember days after this accident, even trying to have a conversation, I was just out of breath and I just couldn't breathe. And over that first year, I spent a lot of time in, doing different breathing studies, doing different breathing techniques to try and bring that back, to get all these respiratory muscles back in and try and maximize stuff. Now breathing is maybe the biggest thing that I focus on. 3 days a week, I focus on lifting. Riding is the other part, but every single day, twice a day, I'm doing some kind of different breathing technique, trying to, always nasal breathe, always pull the air in, and keep everything coordinated the right way. Because what happened was, even last year, I really start becoming aware of the fact that I'm breathing through my mouth a lot. My posture starts slipping because my diaphragm was affected, and everything. It was just, any little thing that I change in my life has such a ripple effect that goes on. And that's good and bad, because if I change something that's good, it really ripples in the right way. But if I change something in the bad, all of a sudden the ripple effect that systemically goes through my body, it becomes almost catastrophic.
Yeah, because I think, you hear C7 and, your respiratory muscles, all of that stuff is all part of your thoracic spine. And so, yeah, it's definitely weak, but you can train all that stuff as long as it's incomplete, you have some ability. That's awesome. And I think probably cycling is great. Doing that endurance sport, you're pushing things just like everything else.
Yep. So exactly. So
Yeah.
all of that stuff, everything, it's amazing because it's the more situations I could put myself in, from cycling to swimming to all these
Yeah.
different things. It really does bring my body back in ways that I just never thought were possible. So it's definitely helped out a lot. And we're living with COVID going on. I'm super cautious of everything out there because I just don't know what that would do to my body. I don't. Everybody always asks me, they're like,
Yeah.
are you at a higher risk? Like, is that,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm a pretty healthy guy. I mean, I
Yeah.
obviously have limitations, but I do believe that I think breathing, even for the healthy population, is such an important way to train. I think you should, the focus of different breathing techniques and stuff, I think it just pays dividends on overall performance and then just lifestyle. I mean, we spend so much time with our men's soccer team just teaching them how to breathe, and it's amazing with them learning how to breathe or breathe properly, where their VO2s end up retesting and what that looks like on their body. It's really incredible.
That's awesome. So then as far as COVID, you're in the gym, you got all these athletes in there and they're college students, so who knows what they're doing. I know you can try to track them. What risk or what's your exposure like? What are you doing now to limit that exposure?
So we're super fortunate at IU. We have two team physicians that are. We have Dr. Larry Rink, who's a world-renowned cardiologist, and then we have Dr. Andy Hipskin, who is our team physician. Both of them are not only leading the charge at IU, but they're leading the charge throughout the Big Ten and in the country as far as what the protocol should be in place. So we're pretty fortunate of having kind of the best right in our backyard. And so for us, we're football team is tested every single day. All of our athletes are getting tested minimum 2 times a week, sometimes up to 4 times. We're getting tested weekly. But on top of that, social distancing is a major deal that we're really trying to always adhere to. Masked up all the time, making sure that everybody is spread out in the weight room. So again, that social distancing, making sure that it's like every other rack they're on. Uh, it's it's been really, in the beginning, I was really, really concerned. But
Yeah.
then as time went on and you find out that everybody falls into these new normals and this attention to detail of, making sure that things are wiped down, making sure masks are always on, making sure that they're standing away from you. They transitioned out of their old habits fairly quickly. And
Hmm.
it gave me kind of that reassurance that, man, this is going to be okay. Because my big thing is I'm only about 4 foot tall, sitting in
Yeah.
a wheelchair. So everybody that's above me, alive, I'm kind of getting showered on all darn
Yeah.
day. Um, so I was pretty concerned about it, but
Yeah.
I've been around a couple athletes that I know have had it. We found
Yeah.
out, and when we both had masks on, and we both stayed away from one another. I never tested, knock on wood. I've
Yeah.
never tested positive, and a couple of them have.
Yeah.
Um, so again, we're trying to be as cautious as we can, but it's been amazing to see what those young athletes, the responsibility that they are taking into this environment.
Yeah, that's good. And so, two questions. So the first one, like I'm in healthcare too. I'm a physical therapist. So I think by taking the necessary precautions, social distancing, wearing a mask, having both parties wear a mask, I think it decreases the risk so much. So I think that's number one. But then now two, go to your breathing, wearing a mask. What is that? How difficult was that in the beginning?
Oh yeah. But this is how it started in the summertime. We get the entire men's soccer team back, and we're out in the field, and I had them wear their mask even outside at that point,
Yeah.
and they're all dying, and they're running, and there's sweat that's saturated through, and they're trying to breathe, and you could just tell that this intensity's up. But I'm like, I wonder how hard this actually is. So then I just decided to wear one and go out on my hand cycle
Yeah.
and go. It is unbelievably more challenging to have that mask on with it. But what I will say is that, like everything, we adapt.
Yeah.
We adapt to it, and you get used to it. It's still not comfortable by any means, but it's tolerable.
Yeah.
And knowing that, to your point, that if two parties are wearing that mask, it keeps us that much safer. Everybody's just come to terms with the fact that, yeah, this isn't the best. It's not ideal, but at least we're both being safe. At least we're still getting that workout in. I've been asked a couple times, well, do you think generally if something's harder, it makes it better? I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe there's some physiological bonuses to this, but I don't know. We've done a lot of testing, and we haven't seen anything that is different than the normal. But I do know that we're safe. Our endurance is where it needs to be, if not better than where we were.
Yeah, we joke about that. I know the beginning, I came home from work exhausted. Just, you're tired because you don't feel like you're getting oxygen. Now it's like no big deal. And actually here in North Carolina, the recommendation is to actually start working out with a mask on, unless you're doing, a severe workout, like strenuous workout, I should say. But who defines strenuous? So that's the difficult part. But I've tried running with it, and it's hard. It takes a while to get used to, and that's where I think breathing, using proper breathing technique does help as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a big thing that I realized. I really start focusing on nasal breathing, even no matter how strenuous the exercise gets, no matter how hard it is. Your natural instinct is to resort to breathing through your mouth, but we're really focusing on breathing through the nose. With the mask on, it even helps so much more. When I was trying to breathe through my mouth with a mask on, it's getting sucked in, but
Yeah.
with the breathing through your nose and it just kept everything so much better. And I was able to train still at a really high rate of intensity.
Oh, that's awesome. So you said you are doing some swimming?
I am, yes. And some
Yeah.
is very relative term. I'm, it's funny. I know you had Sue on,
Yeah.
and Sue and I are the same as far as like swimming. We are just people that are not the best swimmers, but yeah. So if you take my legs away from it, it's even become even more of a scene. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, it's so freeing to get into the water. I'm doing it for
Yeah.
fitness, but to be able to get into that space in the water and be supported and be able to move, it's such a freeing, cool atmosphere to be around. So I love it for so many things, but psychologically,
Yeah.
I get a lot of joy out of it.
Okay. So pre-COVID, were you doing a lot of trying to do exercise and stuff in the water besides just swimming? Were you doing stuff?
Yeah, I was trying to, yes. So when I'm in the water, I try to almost do different core exercises. So
Uh-huh.
I can learn how to stabilize or rotate or do anything, use the water as almost
Uh-huh.
resistance on my legs. Yeah, I try to do a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, that's great because it just basically takes body weight away. And again, anything you can do to work your core is a good thing, especially if you have some muscles there. Uh,
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is trying to activate anything in whatever different kind of planes, trying to even move limbs at this point. It's crazy to think, but 2 years ago, yeah, 2 years ago. So that would have been 6 years past the accident. I was in the shower one day, and I always try to move my toes. It's just a thing I've
yeah,
always done. And one day I looked down and I could see my fourth metatarsal just moving. And I
yeah,
thought, is that happening? Like, is
yeah,
that? And long story short, over the last 2 years, I've been able to move all five toes, and I've actually gotten some movement in my left calf. And the only reason I say it is because right after the accident, they told me that you have made basically a year, maybe a year and a half, and then after that, it is what it is.
yeah,
But I have been doing all these different environments, getting into the pool, trying different things, and who knows? At this pace, I'll probably be 125 if I ever take a step the way things are going back. But nonetheless, you just never know. And so
yeah.
I try to put myself in different scenarios to create different stimulus and try to maximize whatever it can happen.
Yeah, the brain's an amazing thing. So again, you just keep stressing it and you see what happens. Uh, so are you doing weight bearing stuff? Are you trying to stand in a standing frame or anything?
Mm-hmm. So I do. I have a standing frame at home, and I have one over at my office. We actually have another one in the gym too, and that one is actually positioned on a vibration pad. And so
Okay.
what I found was that by standing on the vibration pad, it stimulates so much, but I could actually lock my quads out. And it's not a voluntary thing, but
Yeah.
the stimulus from that bottom and the vibration, it actually will put me in a position that I could stand there with my quads and glutes kind of locked in, which is incredible to
Yeah.
so, so I do. I try to weight bear as much as I possibly can. Um, I'm trying to think of anything else that would weight bearing wise. I do a lot of the standing frame just because it's so easy and it's very independent that I can just jump in and out of.
Yeah, that's great because we want to weight bear through those bones again, just to try to keep them strong as well. Because when you're not weight bearing, we worry about, bone density.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you want to talk about a real kicker. Break my neck. I'm paralyzed. Life is tough, and all this stuff. But 6 months into this, I end up having my foot swell up, and I didn't know why. End up going over to get an X-ray. X-ray comes back that nothing was broke, nothing was bad, but I had early onsets of osteopenia, and I thought, what? Like, as I'm a 32-year-old man, and now I have osteopenia. Like,
Yeah.
it was the weird things in my life that really triggered this emotional reality check of what's going on. And so now I do a lot of calcium, but I try to weight bear as much as I possibly can. My wife and I, we have a standing frame out in our main living area, and she'll sit on the couch to watch
Yeah.
TV, and I'll stand because we just kind of role reverse. She's on her feet all day.
Yeah.
I'm sitting all day. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you do a massage too?
I do, yeah. So deep tissue massage, I do that once every 2 weeks. I have a fantastic woman in town. She's sadistic. The pain that she puts you in, but I got to say, every time these shoulders get gunked up, she definitely is able to keep them going. But it's the consistency that I've found. I used to go to her only when things hurt, and then I realized that if I only do that, then it wasn't wreaking the benefit. So I use massage as more of a therapeutic deal, not so much a problem solver or a fixer.
Okay. So didn't you do a relay
Yes.
recently? Yeah.
So that would have been, I guess, about 2-3 years ago now.
Okay.
With my wife and a great friend, Jason Durking. He's a director of strength and conditioning at Louisville. And Jason and I we used to compete in half Ironmans and endurance races all the time. And he came up with the idea of, let's do a relay. Let's go back to Benton Harbor. That was the last race that we did together. And and we went back there, and he did the swim, I did the bike, and my wife did the run.
Okay. So any problems recovering from that? How'd you feel?
Not bad. Well, that ride itself wasn't too bad. I was riding pretty heavily from going into that point. So the 56 miles itself wasn't too bad. There's a lot of things that aren't really kind of talked about logistically, like as far as a hand cycle. So what ends up happening, as soon as I go from the seated position to laying down, I'll have to go to the bathroom. And when you're out on the hand cycle, it's not that you could easily just pull off and do that. So I knew this was going to happen, and I was very aware of how much water I was putting into my system. So the only thing that did happen after that race was I got really dehydrated, and I ended up having to go to a tent and get an IV, which wasn't a big deal. It kind of felt good after the end.
Yeah.
But that was it. I was fine. I did one. We did 120 mile ride in the heat. That when I was done with that, physically, it was just exhausting. I mean, 120 even when we would have ridden on a bike would have been tough. But to be out on that hand cycle and be locked into that position, staring up at the sun all day, that was a tough day.
Yeah. So how do you do nutrition and hydration? Because obviously,
So my hand cycle is pretty neat. And the big 100+ miles was, we were able to stop. So I was able to take care of what I needed at that point. Hydration. I have a Camelback that sits right underneath the seat. So I can have 100 ounces nice and chilled the whole time with little hoses that come over each shoulder. And then I wear a fanny pack right on my waist that sits there, and I just could reach in there and grab food and pull it out. So it's been pretty neat. I mean, the world of hand cycling is awesome. I mean, there's a community, a culture, a competitive culture that has been established, especially with a lot of our young men and women that were overseas,
Hmm.
military duties, and then unfortunately they're have an accident. Well, a lot of them are back, and they are super competitive. So they've
Yeah.
come back, and we get together and we race, and that's become a pretty big part of my life, of being able to get out and push myself physically the way I was before, but getting that competitive nature back.
Yeah. So how hard is it now with COVID, with everything being canceled?
Yeah. It's a weird world, where the world we're living in right now is all about just adapting,
Yeah.
understanding that we may not like what's going on, but if we could just look at this as a learning experience. We kind of talked about that in the beginning.
Yeah.
What are we learning from this right now? Instead of dwelling on what we're missing in all the races, what can we learn from? But that's easier said than done, because I know this. I'm looking at my office right now, and there's a bunch of stuff, trophies, and things, and I miss it so much. I just want
Yeah.
to get out there, and the camaraderie. You know how it is
Yeah.
at Ironman, and you want to be around people that are like-minded, and have the same idea and cheer each other on. The racing is one thing, but it's that environment and everything that surrounds it that makes it so special.
Yeah. That's awesome. So do you work with older athletes too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not as much right now. I do. I guess I have about four, what I would deem as older. We'll just say 50 plus,
Hmm.
older than the 18 to 20-some-year-olds.
Okay. So I want to quickly talk about, so make Sue strong.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that happen?
No, Sue is incredible. Knew her for a long time, and she asked about working with her, and any to be around her is a privilege for me, because learning from what she could teach is just unreal. So she says, I really want to get stronger. I think I heard it in the podcast
Yeah.
that she said, she everybody was stronger than her in that thing. Well, we got her in the weight room, and we started just sampling with, well, how strong is Sue?
Yeah.
Sue is pretty darn strong, and I'll tell you what, she's extremely disciplined and focused. And we started off really light, and then we start working into some of her weights, and she was a responder. I mean, she quickly, weights continue to keep going up, continue to keep getting better. And I think with Sue, I don't even know what her cap would be as far as strength, but there one part of it that I really still wish she would do is mobility. I wish we could
Yeah.
get her actually doing more flexibility, mobility training, because I think foundationally that would be something that when we hit round two, when Sue and I get back together after COVID and all this, she's strong, she's disciplined, she's got it all. Now it's going to be about putting all this stuff together and getting her more mobile and more flexible.
Okay. Were you doing a lot of like powerlifting type of stuff with her?
I was doing basic strength training,
Okay.
just from just dumbbell work to bar work. We have a ton of different machines over there. So that's about it. We did touch on some different power movements, such as a power shrug, some different triple extension exercises to really get her up on those toes and really maximize the ankle, knee, and hip. But really, we stuck to the foundations, the
Okay.
fundamentals of what strength training is. Basic linear progression. She came in on one day, she did this weight. Next time she came in, we went up about 5 pounds. And each time she just continually kept going up. Every day had a goal. Every goal was just to be met. And then we reassessed it. And then we just kept moving forward. And like I said, she's an incredibly focused and the easiest way to say it is she's a responder. So you give her a
Yeah.
little, and she just continues to keep climbing that ladder. And at the end of a 6 month strength training deal, it was unbelievable to see what she transformed into.
Yeah, well, I saw her Kona time, and I said it's pretty impressive to see what she did, and to be able to run a 3:49 marathon after, doing the swim and bike. That strength had a whole lot to do with that.
Yeah, yeah, she is. I'll tell you, she's a warrior. She's a trooper. She's tough as they come, and she's done her homework. It's all that preparation that's gone into it, and then it's being able to analyze herself. What do I need to work on, and having some truth, kind of a truth talk with herself
Yeah,
of what it'll take, and then she puts in the time, and she produces the results.
that's incredible. So for you, what do you think some of the secrets of your success are?
I think just a positive, an optimistic, positive mindset, I think is one of the biggest empowering things for me. I just
Yeah.
think I love to see the good in everything. And even if I'm blinded by, I'm not seeing the bad, I believe that everybody's coming to, our old athletic director, Fred Glass, always said, assume that everybody's coming to you with good intentions. I think it was the old like Jesuit proverb or something like
Yeah.
that. But he always said it, and it just resonated with me so much because there's so many times that people come to me with situations, and I if I remember that they're coming to me with good intentions, I look at seeing the good in what they're in the message they're bringing, and it also allows me by practicing that to look at any scenario that we get put in and see it optimistically, see how I could grow from it, see how I could continue to learn and move forward from it, and I really do think that is. I think that's foundation for success. I think that's what's helped me out tremendously throughout this journey.
Okay, that's awesome. What changes or additions do you think you're going to have to continue to add to your routine now as you're aging?
Yeah, there's a clear difference in my mobility. I'm big in mobility. I feel like the older I get, I can clearly see where my body's shifting one way or the other. I can see how my body wants to round forward. The nature of the chair is that a lot of the stuff that we're doing is, it's in that frontal plane, and
Hmm.
I know that I got to compensate for that and do a lot more posterior stuff. Um, the physical aspects to where I'm gonna be in like 10, 15 years. Uh, I don't really know, but I do know that if I look at this little micro part of the last 8 years and understand that where my body's going, the trend is going to be, I need to stay really strong. I need to
Hmm.
keep good flexibility, and I got to pay close attention to every little thing right now because if you let the little things go, they're good until they compound, and they can
Yeah.
compound in a good way, but a lot of times they compound in a bad way. So I'm just really attentive to the present moment and everything that is going on, so that later on I'm able to live a good life.
Yeah. How old are you, Tom?
41.
41. Okay. So, how about nutrition? What do you do for diet?
So every morning I wake up and I got into athletic greens. The supplement, didn't think I'd ever be buying that, but I'll tell you, I started and I thought it was going to be a scenario, by the way, just get it in the first round and then I cancel the subscription. It makes me feel like $1,000,000. It really does
Okay.
help me out as far as getting in some of the stuff that I was missing. But I try to eat less these days. I don't. I used to eat a ton. I'd wake up and eat this huge breakfast. I would do all these big meals. And what I found is that I've cut back a ton on that. And my overall digestion is better. My weight is consistent, and my overall energy is much better. So that, and then getting rid of all the sugar. I try to stay away from sugar. It's really helped me out tremendously. But I think diet is you can move, you could exercise, you could do all that stuff, but if you don't put the right foods in your body,
Hmm.
it really um, you never maximize what life or what true performance could be.
Yeah, and yeah, it's nutrition is so important for your recovery from anything you're doing too, and setting you up for the next day. So I think it's important.
Correct. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that hydration, everything. I mean, it is such an important part.
Yeah, and plus, you're lucky to have that team around you of all those people. The resources that you have are probably incredible.
Incredible. I mean, that's what I said. This is there's literally no excuse. I know this happened to me, but I am fully aware that even if I need nutrition advice, we have some of the best in the country. We have medical
Yeah,
people. We have it's just I'm extremely grateful and humbled by the fact of the scenario that I am in. But I also am not going to sit back and not take advantage of it and try to continue to learn and maybe even spread that news or spread that
yeah,
way of taking care of yourself to others.
that's awesome. So as far as just a few more questions, I don't want to keep you much longer. As far as like goal setting, do you have day-to-day goals, weekly goals, long term? How do you typically handle those things?
Yeah, so I love goals. I love goals, and I don't follow goals. So let me explain that a little bit. I always put a big goal out there. Again, after this accident, I had a big goal of independence. Worked my butt off to get to that. I also had a big goal of walking, but for me, I throw a big goal out, and then I work the process of what has to happen that given second. What my attitude has to be right now, so that ultimately I could end up to get to that goal, whatever it may be. So um, I'm a much more process driven person. I'm a much more process devoted person. Everything that I do is with the idea, though, of following kind of that goal or that North Star. So let me chase that. But if I get to it, if I have success at that, yes or no, it's not as powerful as the process, the journey to get to that point. And there's a lot of big goals I had after this accident, and quite frankly, I didn't hit them. But that's okay, because the reality is the process. I still put everything I had into trying to get there. Every day I woke up, and every day I put my shoes on the same way and the right way. And then some things were just out of my cards, but the process taught me about the discipline, the consistency, who I am deep, and all the other very valuable things that I've learned throughout this journey.
Okay. So do you follow any special mantras or quotes or people you draw inspiration from?
Yeah, so I live off of one thing, that is make today better than yesterday, because
Mhm.
that's all we got. We know what happened yesterday, and we got this given moment, so let's make this day better than the last. And I think the same way as I try to chase goals, I just try and make today better than yesterday, and then continue to keep that process going for whatever day that's ahead of me. And hopefully this ends up being a really good journey of life.
Yeah, amazing. And I usually end with the hashtag my miles are for. I have a twofold question for you. I want to see if things are changed. So I want you to think pre-accident, if you don't mind. What were those miles you were doing pre-accident? And then how did that change after the accident?
Yeah, that's good. So before this accident, those miles were for me. Like, those miles were, I got up and I just wanted to prove to myself. I wanted to put myself in scenarios where I wanted to quit, and I wanted to prove it to myself that I didn't have to. I didn't want to, I could just keep moving on and keep having success. But now, every mile that I do, I have the idea of somebody else in mind, showing them that anything is possible. You could get knocked down. You could have this stuff happen to you in life, and you can gain your life back, and you could gain your life back better than it was before. So um, that's actually that's a beautiful question, because I haven't really thought of that
Yeah.
a lot, but that's how my life has kind of gone in so many aspects. I thought of others before, and I wanted to help people out, but now I feel like it's my life goals, my life mission, is to be able to help others and show them, inspire, and to be able to help other people continue to keep making each one of their days better than the last.
That's awesome. And you're definitely doing that, Tom. I have to say, everybody that I've talked to that knows you, and then just seeing any of the things that IU has done, as I searched, I looked for everything out there that I could find, and the with the IU soccer team, what they have out there, and then interviewing some of, I think probably some football players, pretty incredible. And I think that team you have around you is just awesome, and I think that helps, and I think you are providing inspiration to everybody. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate the kind words and this opportunity to share my story with your listeners and to be part of this.
Yeah. So if people want to, there's some Tom's. What is it? Tom's Team Charity.
Yes.
Yeah. What is that?
So Tom's Team Charity is, we're in the process right now of launching a big campaign coming up. We call it the Project or CAN Project. And what that is that's going to be a huge fundraiser that we'll launch here in the upcoming 2 weeks, actually. I guess deadline's coming up here real
Yeah.
soon. But what that is, that's a big fundraiser that's going to be for people to donate money to give money for adaptive equipment for individuals that have mobility issues, to be able to get out there and experience the world, that I did before this accident, to what you experience now. So things like hand cycles,
Hmm.
all these different mountain bike apparatuses that I'm able to use right now. I just feel like they're really expensive, But if they could just get in the hands of people that have mobility issues, there's just such a level of your life that comes back, and independence that comes back by having them. So we're going to raise a lot of money to help supply them.
That's awesome. Hey, normally I end on that, but I do have, I don't know, do you know the band MercyMe? Have you ever heard of them?
Yes. I actually did. Yes.
So they had a new song that they released this week. It's called Say I Can't. So you have to listen to it. It's about a friend of theirs that they've known for, I think they said they knew him for 20 years. He was in an accident last year on New Year's and lost both arms and legs in the accident. And it's a video about him, and it's pretty amazing. It's pretty moving. It's pretty incredible. And, it's like some of the words are, so keep on saying I won't, and I'll keep on proving you wrong. Wow. So you have to listen to it. When I heard it, actually it was last night, and basically you came to my mind of that doctor telling you can't do push-ups, and you're going to do a push-up.
Oh, I love it. I appreciate the recommendation. Yeah, so definitely I'll check it out.
Yeah. Tom, that's all I got. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it so much, and have a great night.
Yeah, you too. We'll talk to you later. Okay. Bye. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and were able to get some insight into how one weathering athlete approaches each day of training and racing to stay as injury-free as possible. I believe his biggest strength is time spent doing endurance racing, his attitude, his wife, and his incredible IU family. He states that he has never worked a day in his life due to his love of being a strength coach and energy he feels from working with student athletes. I'm sure they get the same energy back from him as well. It is difficult not to come out of a conversation with Tom not feeling energized yourself. I am convinced that environment at IU, along with an amazing team of professionals, has provided the foundation for success. But honestly, it's Tom's attitude, his willingness to put in the hard work that allows for future success. His use of breath work is something every one of us needs to do, especially with the time of wearing masks due to COVID. I'm excited to see the things Tom is doing with Tom's Team Charity, and he continues to push the boundaries of what is possible. Thank you for taking time in your busy schedule. If you find today's or any other episode inspiring, I ask you to consider to join our Patreon program. Details can be found at www.weatheredathlete.com. Also, please don't forget to hit subscribe to this podcast, share with your friends, give me a rating on iTunes, leave me a comment, or drop me a line if you feel you have what it takes to enter the Weathered Athlete podcast. Lastly, no matter how you complete your miles, I encourage you to use the following hashtag, #MyMilesAre4, as a way to reinforce the purpose of those miles. As always, my miles are for the journey. Pete Barusik.